Welcome back. So it's been a while, but today we are back doing the Moving Forward series episode. And again, I've been finally able to do a episode in the Moving Forward series now that the World Cup is taking a mini break before we get to the quarterfinal match. And today we are going to first talk about Atlanta United because I'm planning to do two Moving Forward series episodes today. I'm planning to do one for a team in the Western Conference. But today we'll start with Atlanta United, and this is probably one of the more looking forward, moving forward series that I think you guys been wanting me to talk about, because knowing the fact that, this season, it was another disappointing season for Atlanta United, and that just as you thought that maybe last year after they made it to the playoffs, it looks like we got the old Atlanta back. Yeah, we saw the 2020 version of Atlanta United in this one, which is missing the playoffs again, and, there was a lot of reason why they missed the playoffs, which we'll get to, but they missed the playoffs this season with a 10-10-14 record and with only 40 points. They scored 48 goals, which, again, that's around average in terms of the league, but certainly in Atlanta United standard, you would say that that's on the lower end. But what is not on the lower end is the goals allowed. In fact, yeah, this is definitely more goals allowed I think Atlanta United has ever had in their franchise history, because this has been one of the more solid defensive team throughout their time in MLS, and I think this is the first time ever they conceded 50 plus goal with 54 goals conceded, and they finished with a -6 goal differential and finished 11th in the Eastern Conference. Now, the highlights for this team, and again, anytime when I talk about teams that got eliminated and had a very disappointing season, it is very hard to find highlights. I have to kind of maybe cherry pick a little bit in terms of some of the highlights Atlanta United has. I mean, at least they got off to a good start. I mean, they got off to a 3-1-0 start. People thought that, oh, well, here comes Atlanta United. We saw last season they made that improvement of going back to the playoffs, and after a great year that Gonzalo Pineda has had, and they add more pieces, this is going to be a team that is going to do something in the Eastern Conference, and little do we know that good start didn't last. And at least Joseph Martinez himself won the goal of the year again. I think the goal of the year was probably a vote by the fans, and you probably know who is most likely going to win the goal of the year if that is the case. I mean, knowing Atlanta United fans, they have had the narrative of always stuffing the votes of the goal of the week, or in this case, the goal of the year, and that Joseph Martinez scored an incredible bicycle kick goal near the end of the season. I forgot which game he did it. I think he did it against the Portland Timbers. Yeah, I mean, you kind of had a feeling that maybe that was going to be the goal of the year. I mean, there were definitely some great goals out there, and that maybe I would say that the only reason why Joseph Martinez won it is because of the fans of Atlanta United probably stuffed the votes again. But nevertheless, it is still deservedly won, and again, just the technique of that, and the fact that he was able to hit that one with a power. You don't usually see a lot of players able to hit a bicycle kick with power, but the fact that he hit that with power, probably the best goal that Joseph Martinez have ever scored for Atlanta United. Now, we get to the lowlights for Atlanta United, and there were a lot of lowlights for this team, but probably one of the main reasons why they had a very underachieving season is injuries. I mean, they are probably the most cursed team this season in terms of injuries. I mean, I talked about near around April, where it feels like it's almost a weekly tradition in my News of the Week episode that I have to talk about an injury coming from Atlanta United, and that, a lot of those injuries weren't just some minor injury. There was some serious injury with guys just dropping down like flies because of ACL injuries and stuff like that. Heck, one of the biggest injury that actually caused some problem for the U.S. men's national team is Miles Robinson going down, and even their goalkeeper Raguzan going down too. Although Raguzan was never going to be in the national team picture, but Miles Robinson was. So that was a devastating injury that really riddled their back line. But yeah, I mean, it was just insane how every single week in the News of the Week I talk about there's a player went down for Atlanta United, whether it's end of season injury because of ACL, or the fact that it could be a minor or a moderate kind of injuries. And that, yeah, you can say that I could agree with some Atlanta United fans that maybe use the injuries excuse as a reason why they underachieved, because again, I don't think there was any team at least at that point of the season that has suffered such a big injury bug as Atlanta United has. In fact, if I was going to give the award for the most cursed team in terms of injuries, I would say I would give it to Atlanta United. I mean, last season it was Columbus, the one that got that suffered the injury but curse, and it seems like this season it's Atlanta United that unfortunately got that infamous award. And then of course the other lowlights is that most off-season signing turns out to be a huge bust, and again some of the reason why that is the case is some of them kind of got injured, but also most of the ones just didn't perform at the rate that Atlanta United was hoping for, which is started to become a theme. I mean, you start to see that there's been a lot of these signings that Atlanta United has got that they didn't turns out to do well, especially guys that is coming down to South America. I mean, I get it that Atlanta United has always been known as the pioneer and the team that launched this league into MLS 3.0 with this formula. Going down to South America, get those hidden gems, develop them, and eventually sold them off for a big amount of money. And Miguel Almiron is probably the first example of that. But ever since, it has just not turns out to be that case. They have really struggled in terms of all that formula. And then the last thing that is a lowlights for this, but certainly not the last thing, because again there would be I think I would have spent like 20 minutes in this video talking about the lowlights for Atlanta United this year, is the Joseph Martinez saga that went on with this team. I mean, again, and there's definitely gonna be that big question this offseason. I'll get to that once I'll get to more of that once we talk about the moving forwards part of this moving forward series episode. But yeah, the Joseph Martinez saga was really reeling its ugly heads, especially with what happened near the end of the season, where there's disagreement with whether the front office or the head coach with Gonzalo Pineda, and Pineda actually had to discipline Joseph Martinez because of the numerous bad behavior and comments that he has made about the front office and also about the coaching staff. That it started to really affect negative to this team to a rate rare where there was time where we were even focused more on the Joseph Martinez situation than actually Atlanta United. There's a question that are they going to once again look like what we saw in 2020, which is going to miss the playoffs once again. Now, in terms of the top goal scored for this team, Joseph Martinez actually he didn't finish with 9 goals. Let me correct that here. He actually finished he didn't finish with 7 goals, but he actually finished with 9 goals. He didn't tie with Ronaldo Cisneros for that, but he finished as the top goal scored with 9 goals, which is not a big surprise. But the biggest surprise of this is that there's no Atlanta United player that actually finished with double-digit goal. I think this is the first time this franchise have not had a guy score double digits score. I mean, maybe in the 2020 season, if I remember when they also underachieved a lot, that they didn't have a double-digit goal score. But yeah, it was very rare to see not having a single Atlanta United player scoring double-digit. With Joseph Martinez came in the closest with 9 goals. Then you got Ronaldo Cisneros with 7 goals. But keep in mind, almost half of them came in one game with that hat trick that he has. Then you got Thiago Almada with 6 goals. Juan Carlos Peralta Juan Jose Peralta with 6 goals there. I got the wrong one name there. But yeah, when your defender is one of your top goal scorers, I've said this before and I'll say it again. When your top defender is one of your top goal scorers, you have serious issue in terms of scoring goals. And then Luis Araujo with finish with 4 goals as the top goal scorer. Now, top assist leader, Thiago Almada actually finished with 12 assists, followed by Marcelino Moreno with 8 assists. Then you got Brooks Lennon with 7 assists, Luis Araujo with 6 assists, and Joseph Martinez with 4 assists. The biggest win for this team this season, I would say it's got to be that 4-2 win against Toronto FC, where, I think between that and the 1-0 win that they had against Orlando City, I think it would be right up there as the biggest win for this team, knowing how much at that point, Atlanta was still kind of just hanging on the balance in terms of pushing for the playoffs. And with those big wins, it looks like they were going to do it, but then they kind of didn't quite had the muster to the end. And of course, the biggest loss this season, I'm not going to go with some of those big losses near the end of the year, because it was always, even though I know I said that those wins near the end of the season, especially the one that they had against Toronto and Orlando, looked like they had a small shot of making the playoffs. It was it was that they needed a lot of help to do so. But so instead, I'm gonna go with a 3-0 loss that they had against Austin FC, and that was the one where, yeah, that's when when at that point, not only that was the worst loss that Atlanta United have suffered at home in their MLS franchise history, but you could easily say that at that point around June, it was kind of where the wheels really started to fell off with this team. And then the average attendance for this team, despite having a mediocre record, we know that anytime when we talk about attendance with Atlanta United, it's always going to be the best in MLS. I mean, yes, I know this season, some people might say, well, yeah, they still have a lot of fans attending games, but there definitely were more empty seats. And keep in mind, the attendance that Atlanta United have posted, and also pretty much every team has posted, are actually pay attendance. They're not actually the attendance for people that is butts in the seats. So you're going to have maybe season ticket holder that didn't show up, but they're going to add it on the attendance because that is the pay attendance. So they were averaging 47,716, which is the best in MLS in terms of pay attendance, and they're probably going to continue to average that mark because I doubt the numbers is going to, like, the worst I would say they might drop to like the 30,000 range, but I think it's going to continue to be 40,000 strong because of the fact that Atlanta United has a very strong season ticket kind of group, and that when you have that strong season ticket group, it already automatically counts. Like, I think they have about like 20,000 season ticket or 25,000, so you're every single one, they're always going to average at least around that mark, and whatever other fans want to buy the tickets to attend the games, that is counted in the pay attendance. Now, the revelation for this Atlanta United team, well, there wasn't a lot of them, but I'm actually going to go with Thiago Almada as the revelation. In fact, I probably should have wrote on the highlights that at least Atlanta United did have not only Joseph Martinez winning goal of the year, but also Thiago Almada winning the newcomer of the year. And, you know, I will say this about Thiago Almada. I think this season, it hasn't really been a bad season for him. I mean, I get why maybe some Atlanta fans are feeling a little underwhelmed in terms of the numbers that Thiago Almada has delivered. I mean, 6 goals and 12 assists for a guy that was a record signing. You would think that maybe that's a little bit underwhelming, and maybe you could say on the borderline of a guy that didn't really live up to its expectation. But when I see him play, especially near the latter part of the season, he just got better and better. And I think this is just an example of what happened when a player, you know, he has that pressure of deliver, but also with the way that, you know, people forget that this is like any other players that is coming to the U.S. for the very first time. You know, they don't know the language, they don't know the culture. It's gonna take time for them to settle into a new scenery, and I think that maybe is the case for Thiago Almada, where it took him time to settle in, but eventually once it settled in, you can definitely see the potential and why Atlanta United paid him the big amount of money. And especially with the goals that he scored, oh my god, some of those goals that he scored are just absolutely bangers, and that yeah, I think that alone maybe is worth the amount of Atlanta decided to pay him a record amount of fees. But we'll see whether or not if he can continue to improve in season, because, you know, I think in his first season, you know, I know the numbers, like I said, is a little bit underwhelming, but I think it's still considered decent, and I think he is gonna continue to improve at a rate where eventually Atlanta United could have another Miguel Almiron kind of situation where he can sold off to a big European team in a couple of years. Now, the biggest disappointment for Atlanta United has to be Luis Araujo. I mean, I could definitely pick a lot of guys, but I think Luis Araujo has got to be the most disappointing player this season for Atlanta United. Like, again, after all the hype that he has last season where he did relatively well, he took a huge step back in terms of this season. And you know what's frustrating about Luis Araujo is the fact that the quality is there. Like, when you see him play, there is that potential that he can be a decent player in this league, but just so many times, especially in the final third, where the decision making has been poor, or the fact that he just go into a run of form where he has struggled to score goals, which is one of the things that Atlanta United bought him when they bought him from Leo just a year and a half ago. Yeah, it's got to be very frustrating if you're Atlanta United, because this guy is, again, he's one of those good example of a lot of Atlanta United player recently has come to this team and just have not really performed at the rate where they pay a hefty amount to do so. And for his sake, and certainly for Atlanta United's sake, they're hoping he will improve, because again, there's that big question of the fact that he is under contract next season, and that you're just gonna have to continue to play him and hope that he's gonna do well. Otherwise, if you decide to just kind of bench him, then it's that contract that he is sitting is gonna look worse and worse. And not to mention, I think he's also one of the designated player for Orlando United. Yeah, you don't want to sit your DP on the bench. When you put your designated player on the bench, then something catastrophically went wrong, and that could be a very bad kind of look in terms of the front office. Which, by the way, speaking of which, that's a perfect segment to talk about the moving forward about Atlanta United and the front office, of the fact that, yeah, I think it's going to be under pressure now that Garth Lagerwey is in charge of this team. Which, by the way, I think that's a huge signing for Atlanta United, because we know what Garth Lagerwey has done to the Seattle Sounders, and that you talk about a guy that is probably the best sporting director and the best president in MLS. Garth Lagerwey is at that rate, at least for the past couple of years. And now he's going to be going to a team that is kind of similar to Seattle, a team that's not afraid to spend money and have a lot of ambition, and also a very good fan base. That there could be a good case that he could do well with. But at the same time, you got to say that the pressure has to be on Carlos Bocanegra and Gonzalo Pineda. More on Carlos Bocanegra, probably because Bocanegra has been part of the last regime with Darren Eales and all those guys, and that for a long time he's been under heavy pressure, especially from the Atlanta United fan base. Like, if you want to talk about one of the most hated men right now in the Atlanta United fan base, it's got to be Carlos Bocanegra, with just some of the baffling signings that he has got wrong, and that a lot of fans in the Atlanta United fan base just had enough of it and demand him to be fired. And now the fact that he's under new regime, and he doesn't have that kind of maybe security blanket that he has with the old regime, yeah, the pressure is on him, because if he does not perform and this team doesn't perform at a rate, I think he is going to be the one that could potentially get in the chopping block. And the same goes with Gonzalo Pineda. I mean, I know Gonzalo Pineda was part of Seattle Sounders, where Garth Lagerwey was last from, but if he doesn't perform, he's going to face the pressure too. And I talk about how when you're a head coach of Atlanta United, you're probably in one of the hottest seats in the league, because that you're expected to deliver. And I think right now it's pretty clear that the honeymoon period of Gonzalo Pineda is clearly over, and that there's even times where last year there was a lot of some Atlanta United fans that want Pineda to be fired from this team because he's not getting the result. And I think now he's probably going to be under the most intense pressure. And that, when I do my hot seat index in the beginning of the season, you better believe Gonzalo Pineda is probably right at the top of the list in terms of the hottest seats right now in MLS. And then the other thing that's moving forward for Atlanta is what's going to happen with Joseph Martinez. Now, I did check the end of season roster that Atlanta United have posted, and they said that Joseph Martinez is under contract. So that means that he technically didn't get released by the team because he's under contract. But I believe this is his last year of his contract for this upcoming season. And again, another thing that I think I heard about Atlanta is that they have a buyout option. So they have an option to maybe buy out Joseph Martinez's contract, but then they kind of don't want to do that, because again, that wouldn't be something that the fans would want to do, because the fans will always support Joseph Martinez and what an icon he has mean to Atlanta United. But again, there's that big question of what are they going to do with him, because the last thing you want is let him go as a free agent next year. And that again, this turmoil that he has with Atlanta United, it's gonna have to eventually resolve in the beginning of the season, because it's not gonna good look for him if he's gonna go through a bit of a holdout situation. I mean, we've seen it in the other league, especially in the NFL, where we have player that gets hold out because they have some sour relationship with the front office and stuff like that. And I think we maybe could see that with Joseph Martinez, because you can clearly see he's not happy with being with the team right now, and especially of all the bridges that he kind of burned in the latter part of last season. And that again, I think this offseason, that's been kind of the main discussion for Atlanta, of the fact that Are they going to move on for Joseph Martinez? Is another team going to buy him? And I think the other reason why we haven't heard too much news about this transfer saga is the fact that whoever wants to get Joseph Martinez, they're going to have to pay a hefty amount of general allocation money. And some teams, maybe they're not wanted to take that huge risk. I mean, I know Joseph Martinez can still be a top goal scorer. I mean, he's been proving it for the past couple of years. But again, just for a huge amount that maybe Atlanta United is demanding, I don't think some of the team want to do, because we could see a record amount of general allocation money that could be spent. Like, I would say somewhere maybe about 2.5 or even 3 million, or even in the 4 million range of general allocation money, and that is just an insane kind of transfer. If it does happen, which is again the reason why maybe some team are reluctant in terms of trying to make that move happen. But there's no doubt Atlanta will listen to offer, because like I said, Joseph Martinez, he wants out. He clearly wants out of this team after what happened last season. And then of course, once they get the guys that are on the IR, I think this should be a competitive team. Again, injuries were a huge part of why they had a bad season, and that they had those starters back in this team, and those guys didn't suffer season-ending injury. I don't think it would have been as bad as what this season is. I mean, keep in mind, when they got off to a good start, that's when they have their healthiest team. But when they started to go through a bit of a tailspin and go through a tough time, that was the time when they started to lose a lot of those guys. So, which I think that also brings to the next point of the fact that, they probably need to spend more on the depth pieces. I mean, I know that they have some depth pieces on their team, but I'm pretty sure some of them they've already moved on from and decided to decline their player option. So now that they need to maybe once again spend to try to get some depth pieces. And it's not just spending depth pieces on players down in South America, which is something that they've done a lot, or even in the Mexican league. I feel like they need to spend more on in terms of players that is within MLS, and that's kind of something we haven't seen them do a lot lately. And I think that would be the perfect place for them if they want to have some depth pieces, because I rather for a team I rather have a guy that could be a proven player that could be useful in terms of depth pieces than just getting a random guy that is have some good potential but still relatively young, and put him in the depth pieces and kind of throw him in the fire, and it just didn't quite work out in the end. And that's kind of what we've been seeing with Atlanta United, and in terms of how they've been trying to fill up their depth in their roster. But there you have it. That is pretty much it in terms of looking at Atlanta United and the moving forward series episode. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video, and if you're an Atlanta United fan, what do you think was the highlights, the lowlight, the revelation, and the most disappointing player this season? And most importantly, moving forward, how is next season going to look for your team? But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.